În această seară, invitatul nostru, Reuven Azar, este ambasadorul Israelului la București. Ambassador, thank you for talking with us tonight.
Mulțumim, Cosmin, pentru această invitație.
Ambassador, two hostages released last night, two old ladies. What do you know about the rest of 220 hostages taken by Hamas into Gaza Strip? What do you know about them?
Well, unfortunately, not too much, because Hamas has refused not only to release them, neither to release any information about them, nor to cooperate with the Red Cross, as you know, decent people should do. What they have done is that they haven't taken soldiers hostages; they have taken citizens, children. There's a 4-year-old child being held by Hamas, whose parents have been systematically murdered. So the fact that they have taken all the civilians is a result of meticulous planning that they have done as we do research out of the interrogations that are coming out from the Hamas terrorists we catched and from the cameras, GoPro cameras the terrorists had. We are getting a picture that we didn't see before. And that picture includes, first of all, the most atrocious deeds that you could hardly imagine that a human being can do, not just burning people alive, not just decapitating people, but even taking fetuses out of pregnant women and decapitating them. And these are really things that are terrible. But what we also found out is that all this was not a result of rage. It was a result of meticulous planning. Each one of these terrorists had, first of all, an idea of who are the people that are in these villages, because we have allowed Palestinian workers to come there and intelligence was passed by them to Hamas. And the terrorists knew who lives in each house, what are their names, and they had orders in Arabic who to kill, who to abduct. What we found out in the interrogations also is that the terrorists were rewarded, were promised to be rewarded with $10,000 and a free apartment for any abductee that they will bring, regardless whether they are soldiers or women or children or pregnant women or youth, anything. So it's really something that we haven't seen from the Nazi time. We haven't seen even with ISIS, because they were doing that and they were going to brag about it, because they took pictures of it that they wanted to show the world in order to terrorize the world, to terrorize Israel and to terrorize the world. And this is the result, and this is what we have to deal with.
There are some information and declarations too. There is a spokesperson for Hamas who tells us Qatar and Egypt negotiated for these two old ladies released, and everybody is asking what they are promising in return.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't take too seriously, or wouldn't take at all, anything that is coming from spokesperson of Hamas. You know, it's about time for us to recognize who is standing in front of us, and who we should take information from, and who should we delegitimize. Any representative of Hamas is a completely non-legitimate person to talk with or to extract information or to trust any information that they give, because it's very evident that they are manipulating the information. They are trying to spread information to the world, like they did with the event in the hospital. That was a false shoot of a missile by Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and everybody took their story seriously. So we have to be very cautious with anything that they are doing. Of course, now when it comes to negotiation, we have a team of negotiators that was assigned by the government. We are not going to comment on the negotiation procedure, because we don't want to undermine any chance of achieving a result in this respect. But as the government of Israel has already said, we are going to continue doing everything we can for the hostages, gathering information, doing raids, negotiating, but this is not going to stop us from dealing with the threat and removing the threat, which is Hamas in the Gaza Strip.
IDF is asking for information from people in Gaza about the hostages.
Right.
Why is that?
Well, there is another way of gathering information. The people of Gaza, I think, now understand what Hamas has committed. Some of them are celebrating that, but we are sure that many of them are not celebrating that, and they understand the scope of the disaster that time and again Hamas has bestowed on the population, because they have completely subjugated the population and made them slaves to their cause, and as a result of their actions, the civilian population is suffering. Not only that, but they are putting on purpose the civilian population on harm's way in order to defend them. Usually, any liberation group or any army or any security force in the world will go out and put themselves in front in order to defend their own population. But this is completely reverse. What Hamas are doing is actually trying to sacrifice as many civilians as they can to gain attraction, and they are actually manipulating and abusing the values of the West in this way. So we have to stop playing that game with them. And we can do it by getting the population to cooperate with us, and I'm sure that many of them will cooperate with us.
Will other hostages be released?
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
There were some expectations about 50 of them. There are in total 220. But the information, you know, I'm talking about the New York Times article, and 50 of them will be released in 20 hours or 48 hours, but only 2.
I wouldn't trust any information released on the issue of the hostages, coming from any source.
Because?
Because it cannot be trusted, because it is obtained by sources that do not necessarily represent official governments, that are trying to manipulate the situation. And here it is not just Hamas. There are many entities that belong to the Iranian axis that are cooperating in this game, that are trying to escalate the situation, that are trying to support Hamas in different ways. So we have Hezbollah, we have Hamas, we have the Muslim Brotherhood, we have Qatari elements that are supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, and of course we have the Iranians. So I think we should be very selective in the way that we judge information.
Particularly this information about 50 hostages to be released is a trouble for you?
Well, we have to allow the people that are assigned with this task to deal with the task. And I'm not going to interfere in this moment or in any way in their work, and I respect their work. So I'm going to leave it to them.
There is a huge amount of pressure on the establishment, on the government in Israel. On one hand, we have this pressure about the hostages, about the civilian lives in Gaza, and on the other hand is the Israeli people expectation about the Hamas erase, completely destroyed. It has to be destroyed after 7 of October. So what you'll do? It seems an impossible mission.
Well, I don't envy the decision makers in Israel. Their life has never been easy, but it's not. It has become much more difficult now. They have a dilemma, no doubt about that. But let me rest assured that both the government, the IDF forces, the Israeli Defense Forces, the 300,000 Israeli civilians, reservists that have been recruited to the army, and the entire people of Israel are backing the effort of our security forces to remove the Hamas military threat. And it is right that we have to take into account many things, including the hostages. Of course, that we are going to do this operation according to international law, and we are actually doing a lot in order to prevent the number of civilian casualties. As you probably saw, we have called for the population of northern Gaza Strip to move south. We have made sure that the population that has moved, including the population that is right now in the southern Gaza Strip, get all that they need under international law, meaning enough water, enough food, they have enough fuel. There's also a lot of disinformation about that. We are monitoring the situation every day with the international community.
You are talking about the fuel? The fuel problem.
That's another lie.
Today, IDF tells us that there is not a fuel problem in Gaza. Do you know that?
So people, of course. So people have to understand. Sometimes they get misled. Okay. In a war situation, you don't have to supply to the enemy territory electricity. You have to supply enough electricity so the health services can continue operating. All the hospitals currently operating in the Gaza Strip have electricity. So this kind of agenda is promoted by people that want to stop Israel from defending itself and are trying to delegitimize our right to defend ourselves. This is not going to deter us. We know exactly who we are and what our values are, and we don't need lectures from anybody. We're going to do the job because this is our duty. You know, more people than are attacking us in the media, we have people that are supporting us, not only in the media, but also quietly, including from the Arab world, and are asking us, please remove this terrorist organization, because we are going to be next. And I can tell you that also world leaders, including from Romania, have told me personally that we have to remove the Hamas threat, because this is really a menace, not only against Israel, but also against the people of the Middle East, against Europe. You are seeing nowadays radicals, fanatics, in European capitals going out to the streets to support Hamas. What does it mean? It means that this kind of radical elements are already embedded within European societies. And we have to do much more. And I've seen the tweet of the President of the European Union, von der Leyen, and also the words of the German Chancellor that said that we have to be much more tough when it comes to blocking radical content in social media, but it has to be done also on television, on satellite television, content coming from the Middle East that is being consumed in large quantities in Europe. If we don't remove the military threat and we don't deal with blocking fanaticism, we are going to encounter this time and again. So it's our duty to do that, and we are determined to do it.
Are you asking EU to stop this disinformation?
Of course. We've been doing that for a long period of time. I think that now more and more leaders are getting to the same conclusion. You probably saw that both in Paris and in Berlin, manifestations have been blocked because these manifestations were attempts by supporters of Hamas to riot in these capitals. Okay, so this is already a European problem. It's not just an Israeli problem. We all have to face it together, and as much as we cooperate in this field, I think we're going to achieve better results.
There is a constant provocation in the north of Israel from Lebanon. It's a Hezbollah provocation.
Yes.
And I've seen articles in your press in Israel. They are saying, you in Israel already in a war with Iran through a proxy, which is Hezbollah.
Well, unfortunately, we've been in war by proxy with Iran for many years because the Iranians have chosen unilaterally to decide that they want to destroy the state of Israel. It's not because we had a border dispute with Iran, right? So the Iranians have been financing and supporting both Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the militias in Iraq that are now attacking American bases, and many other forces in Syria, in an attempt to create the military infrastructure to destroy the state of Israel. What we have told the Iranians, and we have told the government of Lebanon, that we are not interested in escalation right now because we are dealing with Gaza. If they choose to attack us, we will retaliate. We have already retaliated on some incidents in the border in which Hezbollah and also Hamas operatives, terrorists, have fired against our forces. We have killed several dozens of Hezbollah terrorists and Hamas terrorists, and we are warning them, if this continues and if it intensifies, Lebanon will be destroyed. We don't want to do that. We are also telling that to the Iranians, and they are grateful to the United States that they have decided, President Biden decided to send massive forces to the region, also to project a very powerful message to the Iranians to stay out and not to escalate this conflict. But we are getting ready for all scenarios, and that's why we recruited so many people, because we had to defend our country in all fronts, both in the south, in the north, and be prepared to also direct confrontation with the Iranians if they decide to attack us.
Are you able to fight on the both fronts?
Well,
North and south?
As you probably heard in the past, Israel always has maintained the position that we have to build a powerful force that will promise that in any scenario that Israel is attacked, we will have the power to defend ourselves against any threat or the combination of all threats. And this is why we have been receiving, among other things, generous assistance from the United States, but we are never going to ask anybody to fight for us. We are going to defend ourselves by ourselves, and we believe in our capability to do so.
How do you assess the spillover risk, the spillover of this conflict?
Well, there's no doubt that the Iranians are trying to create some kind of spillover together with Hamas and Hezbollah, and we have seen this effort pretty systematically being played out in the last 2 weeks. First, they called for, if you remember, days of rage in the Muslim world to try to create attacks against Israeli Jewish targets, against the West, etc. Right? They have succeeded very little. There have been some demonstrations, but there hasn't been a lot of people from around the world that join this barbarous attack against Israel. This is number one. The other thing that they have done is that they have started firing missiles and shooting at the border in the north. If you saw probably 4 or 5 days ago, we saw an attack of drones and missiles from Yemen that has been intercepted by the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
And we've seen some attacks on American bases, both in Iraq and in the border with Syria. So what I see as somebody that has been following the Middle East for many years is that the Iranians are trying to create an effect of seemingly multi-front attack. But it is not a real multi-front attack. It's not a full-scale attack. So we will have to measure that and to get to the conclusion what is best for us at this point. The government will have to follow that and will have to make decisions. At this point, the government is firm to deal with the threat in the Gaza Strip. If we are forced to go further, we will do it. Right now, we are trying to concentrate in the Gaza threat.
The main concern here in Romania, at least, is that this conflict could lead to World War III. What would you tell to Romanian people who are thinking about that? They are concerned, they are worried.
Well, I'm not a prophet, and I'm not the son of a prophet, but I can tell you, maybe your viewers can draw the conclusion from what I already said, that at this point, despite some attempts of the Iranians to create a picture of a multi-frontal attack against Israel, this is not really what is happening. At this point, the conflict is confined to the Gaza Strip mainly. We are determined to keep it this way. Both the United States and Israel are using force and sending very clear message to the Iranians not to enter into not to escalate the conflict. I'm pretty confident that we can achieve that. If we don't, then it will be a major conflict, but still it will be confined to the Middle East. I haven't seen any other country in the world declaring that they are going to defend Iran or they are going to defend any other of the proxies of Iran.
Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you.